This episode of History Saver is brought to you by Addressing Gettysburg. Addressing Gettysburg is a podcast that shares great experiences, quality programs, awesome guests, and is a welcoming community for all who love Gettysburg. So join in with host Matt Callery and find out why Addressing Gettysburg is one of the top-rated podcasts online today. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, CastBox, Podbean, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, right here on YouTube. So check out Addressing Gettysburg today, where history is not boring. Thank you to Addressing Gettysburg for sponsoring this video.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
So pretty cool this morning. We got here to the visitor center at McPherson Ridge on the first day's battlefield, and we were able to meet some very cool staff of the National Park Service here, volunteers that help make your experience here at the Gettysburg battlefield enjoyable. And they actually gave me one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, and that is helping them raise the American flag over the first day's battlefield, which they've been doing since the 150th anniversary here every morning on the first day of the battle at 6 a.m. So if you're here in Gettysburg on a battlefield, don't hesitate to ask one of these people some questions and information. They're always ready to help, eager to help you learn about the battle yourself. And we're going to continue out. We're going to talk about what happens here on the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg. And General John Buford, during that morning, is going to be standing on top of the cupola you see in the distance of the Lutheran Seminary. What is John Buford doing? Well, let's get into it. So we've kind of moved down here to the McPherson barn on McPherson Ridge, which you see right behind me. And we're going to talk a little bit about what happens in the early morning hours of July the 1st, 1863. General Buford is right behind me on top of this ridge line and the Lutheran Seminary cupola at some point of that morning. And he's observing the Confederate movements that's coming from this direction from Cashtown. If we remember from the first video, you got 17,000 Confederate troops roughly moving through the area of Cashtown Inn, and they're moving to this spot here when they're confronted by elements of General Buford. This terrain is going to play an important feature to the morning. So we are now standing on McPherson Ridge, which you can see here, the McPherson barn, named for the McPherson farm that was here. So McPherson Ridge was the ridge before Seminary Ridge, which is in the background above this fence at the Lutheran Seminary. Buford's up there in the cupola, looking over the battlefield, looking at what's going on. He sends his cavalry out here, and he sends them to Whistler Ridge. That's where they start, where the first shot markers was from the previous video. He spreads his cavalry out into a thin line, deploys 4 artillery guns, and he spreads those out as well. And what he's doing is giving the appearance that he has more men than what he actually does. And he orders his cavalry to fire on the Confederate advance, and then once they get close enough to see them, fall back to the next ridge. So he's keeping the Confederates guessing how many men that he has. They don't know, and he's not going to give them the opportunity to know. And what he's doing is buying time for reinforcements to arrive, including General Reynolds and the Iron Brigade, those damned black hats. And where we are right now is the McPherson barn. And this is in the smack dab center of all of the action on July the 1st, 1863. General Buford has 4 artillery guns spaced out in this area. As the Confederates are advancing, you can see those places marked to my left here where the statue is. And this is that McPherson barn. Now, the house burned down later in history. The McPherson barn is still standing here in Gettysburg today. And this was not only in the middle of the fighting, but also saw the aftermath of the fighting as a field hospital. This is pretty cool to be in this spot in the McPherson barn and get a look at it, of what it looks like today. And someone's gonna put a American flag here as kind of the memorial to all the guys who died here. So right here on the pike, he puts on either side his 4 artillery guns. And this is Battery A of the 2nd U.S. Artillery. And he has some cannon like this, which is 3-inch ordnance rifles, up under the command of Lieutenant John H. Califf in this position. So he spreads these 4 artillery pieces out. And in doing that, he's giving the appearance to the Confederate troops who's making their way down this road, ridge over ridge, that he has more men and artillery here than he really has. If you can look down the pike, you'll see it's rolling hills. You have McPherson's Ridge, which we're on now, Harris Ridge and Whistler Ridge, and then behind me, where John Buford is, in the cupola of the Lutheran Seminary, you have the Seminary Ridge. So what he's doing is actually a brilliant idea. He's got his cavalry ordered out to these ridges to spread out. They're spread from one road all the way over to where today you have the Eternal Peace Light Memorial. And we're going to very carefully cross the pike here, and we're going to go over. There you got General Buford, or excuse me, Reynolds on the horse there. But General Buford right here. In the statue of Buford, we have a really cool cannon here that not a lot of people even realize is here. So you got the statue of General John Buford here. And this is the gun that started the ball. You can see it here. Horse Battery A, 2nd U.S. Artillery. This is the piece, the opening gun of the battle, fired from this spot. July 1st, 1863. So this is the cannon that opened the first shots here on McPherson Ridge. And you've got John Buford memorialized here holding his spy glasses as he's looking out in the direction of the oncoming Confederate assault. So it's pretty neat to know that these veterans were able to come back, and by battle reports and by all of these things we have now documented, you can mark the exact spots of where all of this stuff took place. And right here, well, you've got the opening artillery guns that started the first day's battle. And as Buford would have it, General Reynolds would eventually arrive on the field with those damned black cats. So let's go see where they made their entrance. All right, so now we've moved on the battlefield for probably one of the most important spots on this entire battlefield on July the 1st, 1863. On July the 1st, you had Buford, as we said, who's in the Lutheran Seminary, which is right behind me. He's watching the Confederate advance. Reinforcements arrive in the form of General Reynolds. Reynolds gets to this spot. He's here for about 15 minutes. And in those 15 minutes, Reynolds probably makes the most important decisions of the entire day. And then 15 minutes or so passes by, and Reynolds is shot and killed in the head area. He's on his horse, directing his men, yelling at his men as he dies, "For God's sakes, men, push forward, push forward." And men of the Iron Brigade, or those damned black hats, as we know of them, are pushing into the woods you see right behind me here. And right here behind me is where General Reynolds would meet his fate. And one of the most tragic and horrible parts of the entire battle for the Union Army. Reynolds' loss is felt by the entire Union Army. So here we are. This is the spot where Major General John F. Reynolds, commanding the left wing of the 1st, 3rd, and 11th Corps, Army of the Potomac, July 1st, 1863, will fall. He is on his horse, as I said earlier, directing his men into these woods, which is now known as Reynolds Woods, having them press forward to fight off Archer's men. As you see, you can walk through there now. There's a trail through there, but they put up a mound here and the monument here to John F. Reynolds, John Fulton Reynolds. So we're making our way right now through a portion of Reynolds Woods and kind of taking a look for ourselves at just kind of the landscape that these men had to go over. And you can see as it right in the bottom here, it goes straight down, rises. So you can kind of see how these men the ground that they were having an attack over is not very even ground, as a lot of people may think. This is not flat fields. This is actually rolling hill. And if you look down right below me, there's a deep ravine that runs through here. And this is the very ground where the Iron Brigade come to reinforce the Union cavalry on July the 1st. And they charged the Confederates through these woods. And right behind me at the end of the woods is where Reynolds fell. We saw that spot just a moment ago. So if you can imagine, this little stretch of woods was filled with Union soldiers of the Iron Brigade coming in, attacking the Confederate forces. So you can just walk through these woods today and imagine the Iron Brigade charging through here at the Confederate Army, who is just to my front here on July the 1st, 1863. So as we make our way across the road, we have the North Carolina 26th North Carolina Regiment marker here. This was elements of Heath Division Pettigrew's Brigade of Hill's Corps, Army of Northern Virginia. A.P. Hill back at Cashtown. And you've got Pettigrew, this part of his brigade, and Heath Division. So Pettigrew's brigade moved towards Gettysburg on the early morning of July the 1st from Cashtown in. And shortly after noon, he deployed a line of battle on the ridge 600 yards ahead of where we're facing now. And the 24th Michigan of the Meredith's Iron Brigade was ordered to advance about 2:30 p.m. on Willoughby Run. So these woods are going to see fighting all throughout the day, from that morning throughout that afternoon. And this is there's a cat. Pretty cool. So these woods are going to see fighting throughout the entire morning. So pretty cool to be able to see the spot where one of the Union's most beloved generals actually fell on July the 1st, 1863. And it's neat for anybody to be able to come and see these places, but actually see where men like Reynolds fought and died is an experience that you got to come and have for yourself. So you really need to come here to Gettysburg. All right, guys, if you look straight through there, that is the American Battlefield Trust. They're doing their live stream here from Herbst Woods, Reynolds Woods, and Gettysburg, on a day one battlefield. So pretty cool. About 3 or 4 of my favorite historians standing right over there. So pretty neat.